Welcome to the Movement and Performance Podcast, where my mission is to help people get stronger and healthier through the power of physical activity, especially here in New York City. Today I'm joined by Jesse Danger from the Movement Creative to discuss the world of parkour. Before telling you what we'll discuss, I want to tell you why I chose the topic. Outdoor exploration is one of the core pillars of my Big 8 movement model because it provides many benefits to the brain and body. But one issue we have in urban environments is finding a place to do it. This is why parkour is pretty cool. It provides an avenue for people to engage with the streets, parks, and public spaces right in their own backyard. It transforms the everyday environment into a place for movement, discovery, and play while allowing individuals to experience the benefits that come from outdoor exploration. This is why I'm excited to dedicate an episode to this topic. Now for the episode, we'll explore parkour's origins, philosophy, and some of its foundational movements. Perhaps more importantly, we examine its value as a lifelong movement practice, one that can help cultivate presence and focused attention. We also discuss the role of risk and personal growth and how parkour provides a safe, structured way to challenge ourselves physically and mentally. Finally, for those interested in getting involved, we'll share ways to connect with the parkour community right here in New York City. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy the conversation. Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for doing a parkour episode. You welcomed me into your home. This space, oh my God, is so beautiful. It's a parkour climber adventurer's dream. Before I go, I'm climbing up one of your walls here. So for people that can't see it, you have to view it. You can come by one day, but he's got a wall right here that you can climb up to the second floor. You don't even have to take the stairs, right? Yeah. So I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe what got you into parkour. Maybe a little bit about where we are right now, where we're sitting, and then we'll kind of dive into what is parkour and that stuff too. But let's start with you.
Me. I was 15 and I was getting better at skateboarding, and I did a trick and I broke my skateboard, and I didn't have the budget for a new one. And a buddy of mine had shown me a parkour video. Back then, this was like before YouTube, so you had to download these videos. It would take a day and a half, and you'd watch like a 2-minute 8-bit video of somebody moving across the city. And this was actually just like a bunch of teenagers like kind of jumping around in London. So it wasn't the big, great, crazy old stuff. That came shortly after. But just seeing people kind of do actually what I had always wanted to do with skateboarding, which is like, could I get from point A to point B in like kind of this cool, casual, fun way? So I started practicing it, and I started like becoming like pretty active on, it was like internet forums at the time. So it was like parkour.net, and there was Urban Free Flow, which M2 actually was working with them, and then he started like American Parkour, and he started like the main American forum. So we had our New York forum, and then we had the American forum, and that was like such an anchor for kind of developing the American scene around parkour. I practiced like pretty regularly. It was like what I would do with all of my free time, and like during that time, like I was not succeeding in school. I wasn't particularly interested in doing that. Started working as a mover, like a moving company, and I loved that. It was like running 3 50-pound boxes up 6 flights of stairs in New York City. It was like my absolute dream. And I kind of connected with this like parkour philosophy, like be strong to be useful. Like I felt very useful, and I felt like very strong because of it. And then I was going through all sorts of stuff in my teenage years, and I was like pretty like beat up and bummed out about life. And I kind of like meditated on like those moments that I felt like most connected, that I was like doing what I really believed in and like kind of being myself. And it was like, if I go out and like try something new, like explore movement, and I'm like hanging out with my friends, like having a good time, going to a new place, like then that like works for me. Like that really works for me. Yeah, even before I started Movement Creative, I like just kind of tried it on for size. Like, what if I went to a different space every week and moved kind of regardless of how I felt about it. And I still struggle with this to this day. Movement can become kind of like this like emotionally embedded decision. Like, should I work out? Do I want to go to the gym? Do I want to do this? But I don't really think that way about like eating or like, you know, sometimes I'm so exhausted I don't want to take a shower, but I know I got to take a shower.
Right.
And I really kind of aim to have movement in the same kind of a place where it's like this is something that is like as essential to my life as breathing. And like that weekly session continues. I coach a session called Weatherproof. Maybe I should say like facilitate, because it's mostly like collaborative games and explorations around a different spot in the city. And like true to what you're talking about around like exploring your environment. Like I've had people say that it showed them parts of the city that they've never seen. We're in these like sometimes beautiful, like well maintained and like intentionally designed spaces that people almost never go to. And when they do go there, they're not saying like, you know, how does this inspire me to move? Like what's possible here? So that really became like kind of the heart center of it. I watched a lot of my early parkour buddies open up parkour gyms, which are awesome. Like this is a space where like you don't have to worry about getting kicked out, and the environment is like totally controlled. And there still always felt like a little part of my practice of like, actually I want to go out when I'm cold, when it's wet, when it's like I saw a video in 2008. This guy, Blaine, jumped from like the windowsill of a school, like out 10 feet to a railing in the rain. And he landed on it and he stayed perfectly on it. And it was like, you know, that's impossible.
Right.
You know, and now we're not necessarily doing like a 10-foot jump, but like if it's raining, like maybe we will try like 1-foot jumps onto like a railroad track on Long Island City waterfront, and kind of like push that edge of like what we think is like possible, play with risk a little bit, but always like to the level that people are comfortable with, like learning like not through force, but kind of like a conversation with the environment. Like what can I do? Like what am I ready for today? What can I expect of myself?
Yeah, you just touched on a lot of different things that we're going to talk about at some point. But yeah, one interesting thing you just said was about almost like I don't think about eating, right? Like you're kind of like you eat 3 times in a day or whatever it is, and you do that every day. Or even if maybe you skipped a meal, but you're still eating that day, you know?
Yeah.
How do you design movement into your life in a way that like it's just regular? And I think you're kind of doing it a little bit here. You know, you're now a little bit out of the city. You know, you built a nice space. You know, your whole house is kind of like by design. Like you can climb up things in the house. You know, you have places to chop wood. You have to walk around. The movement seems like it's a part of your life by design. You know, so that's cool. But so before we start getting into some of the other things, just what even is parkour? So some of the people watching will be, I think majority of the people that are tuned into this episode will be interested in parkour and never did it before. There'll be some people though who are experts and just love movement in general, but a big part of the audience will be beginners. So how would you define parkour for a beginner?
How long do I have?
Yeah. As long as you want.
Yeah. You know, the kind of origin story and like how it developed like is something that I appreciate. I wasn't there. These are things that I've heard or I've read. And
when was this, by the way? About like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, 50?
I would say like it started being called parkour like maybe a little bit more than 30 years ago.
Okay, so relatively new.
Yeah, relatively new. But like well before that, there was a volcanic eruption on the island of Martinique, and what George Hebert, who would go on to create Méthode Naturelle, like saw was that people that were like used to training in, I guess, like a Western way,
Right.
and thinking in a Western way, got stuck in traffic, like trying to get out in a way. And people that were comfortable like moving through like dense foliage, through rough terrain, were able to like get away and be safe. So he took that and kind of thought about like what are the kind of core capacities of human movement, the essential ones like running, jumping, climbing, balancing, swimming, lifting, carrying, throwing, self-defense, like these kind of things, and said like, what if we made like a program based on that? And I guess true to some kind of Western style that in my understanding like ended up looking like fairly regimented. And then also like gave birth to like parcourses or parcours du combattant, like a military obstacle course training is like, how do we prepare people to go out into the world and face the unknown? Right. They might have to climb up and down from things or go under things or crawl or balance or like evade. So that became like a serious and regular way of training, and that was a way that I kind of influenced a small community of inspired teens in a suburb or a couple suburbs of Paris, like Lys and Evry. And Lys and Evry, like they started practicing. They were inspired by that training, but they were also inspired by like Dragon Ball Z. And they were inspired by like Jackie Chan. And you can go there and you can see like how like what they've done in the past, and you can train with them, and you know that's like a cool thing. You can train with these like kind of original practitioners of this. You don't get to do that with like tennis. But you know, I was at an event and Jan Inatra was there, and I saw him like crawling, like doing quadrupedal movement, like hands and feet, crawling different ways, maybe like 2 hours a day with just like the biggest smile on his face. Like he's taking the dog for the walk, you know? Like Izzy is never upset about going for a walk, going outside, like playing around. And there's something there that like, I think it took me a long time to see. So like I saw the long crawl, and that became something that I would do like regularly. Like we'd go to the Brooklyn Bridge and we'd like crawl all the way across the Brooklyn Bridge. Wow. And it was like this kind of like tough kind of oorah thing, but finding more of like a softness of play and like a gentle enjoyment in that kind of thing. Like I imagine like a group of I don't know, military operatives like crawling through the snow, like really roughing it, and then like right next to them we're like having like a snowball fight, and we're like wrestling and whatever, and like so it became a way for me to kind of reflect and cultivate my spirit in that way. So it started with those guys, and I think that is fair and also unfair. Like if you go to this small place in the Lower East Side, it's like the corner of Grand and Essex. It's like a NYCHA building, and it has a little courtyard, and the courtyard is called Scoops, like by the locals, and we call it Scoops like in the parkour community. And Scoops is this game, this like lava tag game, where these different like sections of the courtyard like open up as you play lava tag. And we've had some of the guys that were there 40 years ago like point out a jump and say like, oh, this jump is called like Puerto Rico because it's like you're jumping all the way to Puerto Rico. It's like, and it's like this like 16-foot jump to like a step like over this big gap. There's like big, this one's the Air Jordan. They like step off a wall and they land on another wall, and it's like that's a tic tac. Like that little like microcosm of movement like really like kind of pushed and compelled all sorts of creative exploration, but it didn't reach like global stage. So we're not calling it like Scoops now, we call it parkour. Right. Or other people call it like a lot of the original practitioners don't use the word parkour, they use the word art de déplacement, like art of displacement. Another the first practitioners like preferred and kind of created the word free running, and I think like that kind of like elicits like what is it now? Like because this was something that started like on the internet from videos, and like it was just my little suburban group of 13 to 17-year-olds like jumping around in New Jersey. What was parkour to us? Like, of course, it's not going to be like a direct transmission kind of thing. Like it kind of burgeoned up in all these places in all these ways, and the architecture and the attitude around movement, the attitude around use of public space, like really affected like what, and the underlying culture, like really affected like what the overall kind of culture developed. You know, I watched that like kind of shift with the creation of like gyms as well. Like now you could really like isolate and work specifically on techniques. Like is parkour like the movement of it? So that would be like kind of this is a physical practice. Is it what is happening like to you and your capacity to be ready and prepared for anything? Is it like your ability to like express yourself? So we kind of see like some people like push towards this is about the freedom of self-expression, and some people push towards this is a specific sport pursuit that I can get good at these specific techniques, and some people push into like this is a way for me to develop like my values and myself.
Is there anything that all three have in common, like exploring the environment or something, or like?
Yeah. I mean, I think certainly that. I think all three of them have have what could also be like really well like lit up by like kind of definitions and thoughts around site-specific dance, that like we're going to go to a place and we're going to see like what's possible here, or what's possible now, what can I do? And I think that that is an attitude that you can bring to any area of your life, and it could be brought into every sport, but it's not the attitude that I see in all sports. So that's something that I think is kind of powerfully unique and essential to parkour, that you are like asking this question, like what's possible now?
Yeah, there definitely seems like there's a big playful component there. When I divide up that big eight, another one of them is play. When I divided the big eight, I think about it along the lines of motor skills. And someone can then say, though, but you can play with anything. You could play with dance, right, because it's another one. You can play with martial arts. You can play with outdoor pursuits. So why would play have its own category? Because I feel like play is a place where you create the new motor skills. So for example, snowboarding. Snowboarding didn't exist, and somebody all of a sudden said, I'm going to take two skis and I'm going to stand on them sideways, you know, and I'm going to do it that way. And now all of a sudden there's this new motor skill that's born, and a new sport that's born, and it's born through play. And it sounds like parkour, to me, it has, you know, a lot of that structure of, you know, running, jumping. We'll talk about some of those movements, balance, what are some like the basics. But it also does sound playful, almost like I want to look at this and like, you know what, maybe I'm going to think about what I can do and think about what's here, and I'm going to do something cool with it. I want to flip off this thing. I think I can make it all the way there. Like it reminds me of when I was a kid hanging out on the corner. We would just challenge each other, or who could get on the mailbox. Oh, let's see. You know, oh, I think you could jump on the car. There was a point we were trying to see who could jump up. You know, it was a friend's car, so at least we weren't jumping on some string. But you know, it's like street kids trying to figure out how to explore the outdoors where we are. But it seems very much so that play is a big part of the sport to me. I mean, when I see it and when I watch it. You know, do you agree, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were just talking about, like that's a jam. That's that's the whole jam is that attitude of like, you think you could do that? Like, right. Like what could we do here?
So what is a jam?
So the first ways to practice in the U.S. This was like before there were classes really. Like was if you wanted to practice in groups, you'd go to a jam. And a jam is you meet up at a spot and you like see what you can do and see what other people are doing and try to learn from each other. And it was really cool, like coming into a space where nobody was like an expert, nobody knew what they were doing, but somebody might have 15 years of track and field, or 15 years of martial arts, or 15 years of gymnastics that they're bringing into this space that they have 6 months of parkour in. But nobody had 20 years of parkour. Nobody was like, okay, I've seen some things. Right. so that created this like really wild like kind of like what can I teach you? What can I learn from you? Like what's possible with this, and like this kind of mutuality. And then now there are, you know, there's classes and there's like competition circuits and there's that. So it is entirely possible to move through your whole parkour career without having that kind of jam environment. It's probably possible to move through without developing your self-direction. I don't know that that's the case. Most of the people that are coaching in the US like did learn mostly like on their own and with others, like kind of like messing around. So taking this like, how do we mess around, and then turning that into like a class, like what does that look like? And I think you got to experience that, and I think there were probably like a ton of like playful moments in that whole experience.
Oh yeah, you could see it is, you know, I mean, I don't have that much experience with parkour, but the very limited experience that I have, you know, it seems like there are these basic techniques and moves and stuff, but there is this playful spirit for sure. But what would you say are a couple of those basic moves that would be in maybe a parkour class or something? The vault or something? I'm just thinking,
I think I guess to answer your question like directly, that would be like jumping and landing precisely. We call those precisions. And vaulting, we work on swinging.
Vaulting's going over like
using like hands and feet to go like up and over like a wall. We work on crawling for various coordination and kind of conditioning, strength development, and we do different kind of swinging and climbing techniques. If we could see, it's like a lot of it is like, you know, jumping and climbing.
Why did you hesitate to answer? Where is your brain going? I'm just curious.
I think about how sometimes we also do like whole sessions where instead of like specific movements, we're working on like qualities of movement. Like, can we find like kind of a softness with how we're moving, like a fluidity, like a control, or you know, can we absorb like a lot of impact like really effectively in different directions? Can we learn how to like fall safely in a very complex environment, like not like an open room, but like there's walls around us and we're falling off a wall, like onto another wall. Like how do we learn how to do that safely? How do we kind of play with that? Balance is another huge one. We challenge that in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, no, that just helps kind of give people some ideas of like what it is too, you know, like if you've never even seen parkour, I mean, you could just watch a video. That's probably your easiest way.
It's a little bit like one way it could be like it's turning your environment into kind of an obstacle course. Another way could say like you're going to go and you're going to try to figure out like kind of a stupid human trick.
Almost like gymnastics energy to some degree.
Yeah.
Or acrobatics.
Yeah.
Do you think that the average person can participate in parkour?
I think anybody who can move at all can take this kind of challenge, this intentional challenge, embracing challenge, like into their movement. Kind of say like, how can I make this tricky for myself on purpose? And seeing that as like a core driver of kind of functional development.
Your grandma can jump in parkour?
In July, I'm going to go to Madison with Christina, who's our director of programming, and her and I are teaching a course for coaches, like mostly in their 50s and to 70s, like working with people in their like 70s to 90s, some of them, like I've seen videos of a parkour class that happens entirely seated, and I'm a big fan of that, of bringing like play into that, because I also see like, you know, like when does play kind of like drop out of our lives? New York City, you're not allowed in a playground after age 12.
Right.
70% of kids drop out of sports at age 13, saying it's like not fun. So like is a 14-year-old not supposed to play anymore? Like that's the time to get serious or quit? Like that's kind of the system that we've made in a lot of ways, but it's not how it is everywhere. Like in Denmark, they're like 96% active throughout their life. Like you point to any Danish person and they're doing some kind of movement, and that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I love that. My new obsession is finding elderly people who are moving in ways that they really enjoy.
Yeah.
It's literally because...
That's the ticket.
Yeah. I think about it, I'm like, we always highlight the athlete. Unfortunately, the thing with that is like the athlete is in their, they have this prime moment. But I always differentiate in the school system the difference between physical education and athletics. Physical education is for everybody, right? Athletics, you have your select few, and I still believe in athletics, and I think athletics are great. But I lean towards the phys ed and how do we inspire everyone to move. So the ultimate goal, if we talk about everyone can't be number one. Like it literally is out of the, right? You can't have everyone be in first place. It's not the essence of athletics. So how do we inspire everyone to move? I think the ultimate goal can't be to be number one in a field. It has to be, can you make it to the later years of your life and still do what you love? So what are the things you love? Is it parkour? Is it rollerblading? My mom says that all the time. She's like, oh, I love rollerblading. So are you going to be able to rollerblade when you're 90? That to me is because that's something that that's first off very hard. It's not easy, but we can all set that goal and we can all achieve that goal. So when I, see elderly people doing those things they love, I know how hard it is to get there. Sprinting, rollerblade, whatever. I'm like, so any type of play, and even if you can't do what you used to be able to do because things happen, but the fact that you still play, even the seated one or whatever it is. So I think it's great that people dabble in all of these things, and you're going to have to modify and individualize, but you could definitely do this stuff all throughout your life, in my opinion. What do you think is the difference between that elderly person who, if you compare running on a treadmill in the gym versus doing parkour outdoors with your group, do you think there's differences with that, that one has the potential to be better than the other? I don't even want to use the word better, but, are there any differences that you might see between a 90-year-old person running on a treadmill versus doing parkour in the park type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, one is kind of like a cultivated presence of mind and intention around what you're doing. Like there's this idea I think is like kind of a bug in the code in fitness, like the no pain, no gain, or kind of just like just grit your teeth and bear it, make it through this. Which is like, that's a capacity worth training. Mm-hmm. Like that's important. And like there's this idea that like I want to like go to the gym and kind of shut off my mind, and I think parkour kind of demands attention, like especially when we're playing with real risks. Like it doesn't matter whether you jump, like if you're playing on concrete and metal and things like that, that's serious in a way, and it's engaging, and then to find like that playfulness there. I'm wondering if I answered there.
No, you did. I actually really like what you said about attention, because that's something I see myself. I do rock climbing, indoor rock climbing in the gym. If I take, for example, when I'm lifting weights and running on the treadmill type of thing versus climbing on the wall, I can be in the gym and text messaging and then doing sets or on the treadmill, and my mind's kind of, when I'm on the rock wall, like you're only on the rock wall. Like you're not thinking about, first off, you can't even text anyone if you wanted to. Your mind is fully engaged in that moment. And I think a big thing that people miss in fitness, because, I have many different circles, and then there's that circle of like, people who just love to lift, right? And that's all, they just lift weights, and they're kind of like, you don't necessarily need all these things. But I think the big thing that they're missing, that they forget, is the motivational factor and the mind, right? Like whether it's an attention piece. Like I'm probably, and maybe it's just me, there's be interesting studies to do, but you're gonna probably be more motivated and you're gonna be more focused. There's gonna be this mindfulness component. You also have to figure things out. That's super important for, you're not just talking about preserving muscle, you're talking about preserving brain health. There's dementia, there's all these other things. So with fitness, if I only consider muscle and I neglect the brain, you end up, it's not as sustainable. You're at a certain point, you're like, I don't want to do this, or you give up, or you kind of, whereas when the motivational factor is there, the attention factor is there, I have to problem solve, I have to incorporate mind, body, and spirit. When all three are present, you now get something that's a little bit more sustainable. And so, yeah, I think you kind of hit it right on the head, and that's what I felt myself, is that you have more mind, body, spirit involved as a holistic movement experience.
And to me, like that feels like something that I want to cultivate in my life. Yeah. Like I heard, I heard somebody talking about like, how many people have asked you to pay attention, and how many people have like taught you how to pay attention, and like when are we putting ourselves into situations where we like need to pay attention, where our attention is actually like really demanded in an environment where our attention is like constantly being sucked in other directions. Like we've got like huge companies trying to figure out how to get our eyes on like the next post on social media. So to take some time and say like, actually I want to practice my attention right now, and like if that's like paying attention to the game in soccer, or you're like as you're playing, or like dancing with somebody where you're actually like having to like engage in that moment. Like I hesitate to criticize the treadmill, because I think that you can run in a way that you are like paying attention and you're making yourself stronger. I think you can also like run in a way where you're like turning parts of your body off, parts of your mind off, and you're just like kind of ignoring pain, and you're just pushing through something. Yeah. And I wonder what it takes to like turn that on. Like I know that parkour, I think, like kind of demands it. Like you can get hurt if you don't pay attention. Same with climbing. Like
yeah. I also hesitate to. By no means am I bashing the treadmill. I think every tool I've learned nowadays. When I was a little younger, and those who know me and listen, they might, like I used to say, oh, I think distance running isn't that good. I'm like, I'm everything's quick and fast for me. Or I used to say, oh no, Pilates, like why would you do Pilates? I never did a Pilates class in my life. How could I judge it? Like what are you talking about? Like you're like a 19-year-old kid saying stupid things. And now I've done long distance running, and I actually enjoy it and love it. Like every single activity has its value. So, and if it gets you moving, then I'm already on board for that too. So it's more so just this idea of there's another component to train, and maybe that piece is the attention thing. Yeah. Like if I find it much easier to run on a treadmill when I know I'm going to use it somewhere else. Like I think the issue that we have, or that I have with the gym, because I work out in the gym all the time, I'm not anti-gym, but is that when people only do that, and then you have no place that you explore with this thing outside, if you never play with it outside, it's almost like we go to work and we work, we go to the gym, we work, everything's work. At what point do you ever get to enjoy all these efforts, So at some point you got to take it outside, or maybe play a game, dance, whatever. It's like you developed all this muscle for what, or you developed for your cardio for what? What do you love? What do you enjoy? And maybe it is just aesthetics. You want to look good and you want to be attractive and be on a beach. That's cool too. But is there anything else too? But, how do you explore with all of these fitness gains that you just had? I think is very important, and will motivate you to be more intense in the gym when you play with it, because now you're excited, And I think if I had to label this, I think that, attention is what obesity was like 10, 20 years ago. That's our new plague of society. So, I think that's where we are. And obesity is still an issue, but what I think is if you just stop there, it's almost like you have to find the root of the problem. And, I think it's coming down to things like attention. And you're starting to realize how important it is. How do I get in the zone? How do I focus? How do I stay present? How do I play? How do I enjoy? How do I feel? If those things aren't there, it's going to be very hard to give your intensity in other places. But so, yeah, I think parkour has that opportunity to get you outside and play with your environment. But then the other big component that comes with play is risk, right? So anytime, I always said you could die on the couch, you could die off it, right? But so now the more dynamic something becomes, you now run the risk. And people say, oh, I don't want to risk anything, so I'm just going to stay home. I think there's value in risk. How do you manage, though, risk with something like parkour to make sure someone's maybe not ruining their ability to move? you know, how do you manage that?
The first thing I like to say is knives and fire are dangerous, and we have them in the kitchen, and we know they're an important part of life, and we wouldn't couldn't imagine living without them.
That's so good. I'm clipping that one. Yeah.
And yeah, there's some kind of movement risk. I think one of the main things, first of all, we've had thousands and thousands of session hours at Movement Creative, and we have all of our injury reports, and we can see we're lower than 0.1 injuries per 1,000 hours. We are underneath the ping pong. We're underneath so parkour is seen as this incredibly dangerous thing. So what is actually happening, and how can we practice it in a way? What if you went out and you said how could I do this safely? If you were committed to your safety, and you said, how would I do it today if I wanted to be able to do it tomorrow? Instead of can I do this, and let's see what happens. So we have some things, we have a kind of a nice heuristic, we call it pre-flight checklist or a challenge checklist. Am I kind of sound mind, sound body? Did I eat? Did I sleep well? This is when we're looking at something that we feel might be a little bit dangerous. Do we feel good about the social environment? Did we check our physical environment? Do we know that everything we're working with is sturdy and safe? Are we prepared if something doesn't go as planned? If we overshoot a jump, are we going to be able to safely save it? Or if we undershoot a jump? And if the answer to no is any of those things, then we don't do the thing. You have one body, you have another day. So take your time with it. I think moving away from that sense of urgency is one way we keep things safe, and the other way is that this is ultimately a practice of self-determination more than it is a practice of physical performance. I would rather you go out and know what you can do and not do than you constantly be up against yourself every time you go and train. And what does that look like in practice? We might have a balance challenge, and it's got a higher drop on one side, and the thing that we are celebrating is not that student has succeeded it, but that they've said yes or no. They've made their decision, and no needs to be equally kind of honored as sacred in that space. As soon as you make yes more important, yeah.
Yeah, you said that really, really well. Obviously, it's very clear that this is your expertise. But yeah, I think many people will feel social pressure, or maybe they want to show off, or they want to get the Instagram video and people are watching, and now you have all these other factors that are telling you, oh, do it, do it, do it, when really you just have to search inside. And I always used to tell people, if you get to the box and you're hesitating, some people, their advice would be, oh, that's just a mental block, push through it. And I say, no, listen, if your body's telling you can't do it, it's probably because you can't do it yet, right? I'll use the word yet.
Yeah.
And just start with a lower box, build your confidence, go smaller, listen to your body. And I love what you're saying, because you're teaching people to be very in tune with their body and what they feel. Is today a yes or is today a no? And then honoring that is like really cool, because now you have that social support of like, well, today was a no. That's awesome that you actually were able to like listen. You know, I think you said that really well, and that's very important, because it's a thing that I think more so at young people, and you know, or young men, but young women too, and young everybody. You know, I'm thinking from my own life and some of my own friends and who we're hanging out with and dumb things you do and stuff. Yeah, you usually get yourself caught in an issue when you knew you shouldn't have done it and you did it anyway, you know? If people wanted to find a jam, how do they do that? I guess in New York City in particular, is there a way to, or just be connected with the community?
There's various like jams, like people will go out and train if they are interested in kind of like an open gym, like indoor soft environment that also has like kind of some hard parkour obstacles. Like the community often goes to like Ferox in
Williamsburg, or Greenpoint.
Yeah, like Wednesday nights is like the kind of the parkour night there.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to pop in today.
That's pretty cool. On Tuesday nights, I run a donation-based weatherproof session. So we go like different places, and we
weatherproof meaning it's outdoors and
outdoors all weather.
I love that.
Through the winter, 15 to 20 people jumping around, deep snow, sliding, climbing,
so cool.
Snowball fights.
Where is this?
Different place every week, but usually around Manhattan. We just did a Jersey City this past week.
Is that through Movement Creative?
That's through the Movement Creative, yeah.
And I'd, not to cut you off, but I'd share a little bit about that too, like what that is or how people stay connected.
Yeah. The Movement Creative is an organization I started with a couple of friends of mine in 2011. And we've been teaching parkour and kind of play-based fitness for the past 15 years. We do a lot of work with various schools around the city. We run an after-school program called Parkour Adventure, where parents drop their kids off and we like use that local park to do parkour. And then we've got a great adult community. Right now we have some classes and events with the Riverside Park Conservancy, so they're sponsoring some programming there. And then at the end of May, we have our yearly festival, Move NYC. We'll have a few hundred people all around the world coming in to do parkour in the Lower East Side, which is another like cool thing to keep in mind. Memorial Day weekend each year. That's a huge jam, but it's also a ton of workshops. Some people prefer an open space environment for moving, and some people prefer learning from a teacher. And we kind of wanted to have all those people together, shaking it up and having a good time.
Could someone just walk in their park and say, you know what, I'm gonna see what inspires me, and run and jump on stuff?
Yeah, I think you could absolutely do that. You could find something to balance on and see if you could balance for 10 seconds, then 30 seconds, then a minute, like without stepping off, like whatever that is, however high. You can explore how height changes tension in your body. You can see if you can notice some tension if you step on a 1-foot wall or a 3-foot wall or 5 feet. You're not doing anything besides standing, but you can start to notice how this is like kind of physiologically maybe changing your heart rate or your breath rate.
It's a mindfulness component in parkour.
You could go to a park, you could go to like a park bench or a picnic table or a hand railing and say like, what are all the ways I can think of getting over this or through this? And then you could say, okay, everything I just did is off limits. How else could I do it? And
cool.
Yeah.
It's just making me think. I mean, again, this is probably, I'm a little biased because we used to go to the corner and do this all the time as kids. But it's making me want to go to the park and just see what I could jump on and what I could do. You mentioned the piece about weather too. Is there anything with weather? Why would you go out all year round versus being a gym? Do you see any value in always being outside?
Yeah, I mean the big thing is like I I don't want to cancel plans with people because like the conditions are not ideal. Like, you know, if I just look at that, like the conditions are never ideal. There's always a little something. So if I, on a regular basis, say I'm going to go do this no matter what, then I kind of learn to engage with it. Like the practice of it for now, it's like longer than the company, like weekly. So like maybe 17, 18 years I've been going out every week, no matter what the weather is, seeing different people, like going to different spots. The technical development is also just phenomenal. Like you do have to change things when your body's cold. You do have to change things when weather is you know, if it's slippery or icy or and like learning how to change those, seeing what you have to pay attention to be able to change those things and develop that kind of sense of control. Like it creates such a richness. Like I can jump so much easier on a dry day, knowing that I can do this jump in the rain. Like it kind of brings something to the equation.
Yeah, not to mention the benefits of probably hot and cold, right? You got a sauna and a cold plunge right here. Like, or you could just go outside when it's cold. And I mean, I still think there's value in a cold plunge and a sauna, but like hot and cold is good. It's not bad for you. You know, the problem I think is when you're cold, you know, when people say, oh, you'd get sick. Yeah, maybe if your house was cold and you were cold for 24 hours. But if you visit the cold and come back home to somewhere that's warm, it's very healthy to be hot and cold for short periods of time.
You know, I can look at this as like a kind of a grandiose functionality. I want to be ready for any situation. Or I could say like, yeah, like going to that idealness, like can I put up with a little discomfort? Can I actually like, even if the wind and rain is beating at my face, can I like keep myself safe when I'm moving?
Yeah, there's another piece with that someone put this on my radar recently, or I mean something you know, but I was kind of like, you know what, the way you said it was intriguing. When you go outdoors, you never have the same day twice. Whether it's a different sunset or if you just think like the earth is moving, there's all these, you never have the same day twice. So, and back to that piece of stimulating the brain and attention and being in the present moment, like there's things you can pay attention to that you'll be consciously aware of, and there's things that are just happening that you're unconsciously aware of. But that idea of your environment is alive and it's moving, and there's something that really helps the brain, I think, as well with that too.
To that point, like we go to all these spots around the city, like it will be another couple months before we're back at the Brooklyn Museum. The last time we were there, it was like 20 degrees. Now it's a little bit warmer. We're working with the same environment. There's like kind of a spatial map, like a sense. But we can see that kind of shift, like the way that you're saying, like you see that the world is changing and you're changing in the world. And it can alleviate some like pressure for performance. There's also like benefits to going back to the same spot every time and working in the same kind of environment. But yeah, if you did this thing, or you like if you did this thing in this place every 3 months, what would you notice?
Yeah, interesting, especially in a 4-season place. We're getting close. I mean, we hit pretty much the bulk of the questions I wanted to hit. But was there anything maybe we didn't talk about that you know you wanted to share? And no pressure for that, but I just opened the floor in case there was something I forgot.
I mean, one is we came up with this like deck of cards. This is like our greatest hits of activities. Like they're all not only like the greatest hits, like things that have been successful, but also things that we feel like are simple to go out and do. I think they're great for parents to try on the playground, or for teachers to try with classes, movement or non-movement classes. I think all of them can be also like, you know, adapted, and that's called Game Changers.
That's on your website?
That's on our website, yeah. And we have this place, How did
I not, the retreat. I didn't know to what extent it's public or you have public events and stuff, but absolutely please share about the retreat.
Yeah. Please. So we have 7 acres. I'm in the process of taking over, and we've been here for a couple years. We're in Westchester, so maybe just about an hour, sometimes an hour and a half or 2 hours with bad traffic away from New York City. And we're like perfectly nestled, like totally surrounded by trees. We've got a parkour park. We've got like boulders for crawling around on. We've got like space for bonfire. We've got wood fire sauna, cold plunge, and we host various retreats. Like movement has been such a big part of my life, and movement has become this way for me to reflect on myself. And we're trying to and succeeding at making events that do that. So we've got like a writer's workshop coming up in July. We have
Anyone can sign up for
anyone can sign up for these. In July we have one. It is Become the Hero. So it's a Dungeons and Dragons inspired group fitness adventure weekend.
Very cool. I love it.
So we'll be doing all sorts of stuff in the woods. Gets us like running and climbing and learning how to pick locks and make fires and do all sorts of interesting things.
Do people rent the space too, or you just host events
yourself?
Yeah,
so we do also like host groups. So like in June there's a parkour group, like a big teen class, and a couple of their coaches are coming up from New Mexico, and they're gonna stay here for a few days.
Very cool.
And we've had
you have the bunks up there. You got plenty of room to fit people.
Plenty of room to fit a ton of people, and we've had companies come up and stay for the weekend with their groups, and we can facilitate some movement and support around a healthy, organic, home cooked food, and yeah.
Is there a website for it, or Instagram, or what's the best way to get more details if someone wants?
Yeah, it's on Instagram as vandra.hem.
Okay.
And that's Vandra Hem, like that's the wander home or the wanderer home, and that's both like both the verb and kind of the noun. Like we think like, you can say like this place feels like home. Well, then we know that home is a feeling, and we know feelings are like inside of us. So if feelings are inside of us, that means it's something that we can actually like train, we can practice, we can notice, we can cultivate that kind of a feeling. We can become kind of wandering homes, creating a sense of home like around ourselves wherever we go.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, and I'm not just saying, like, I walked in here, I was deeply inspired by the space you got going on here. It's very fitting for me too. I mean, everything from the natural lighting, big windows, there's just little pockets of creative things that, right? So you have like your little parkour area, there's the little fire pit here. You also said, what was it, the outdoor, I called it like an ancient sauna, but because that's just my ignorance behind it, right? But like, you said you take the rocks and put them in there. How does that go? It's like
we did a biking weekend. We had everybody doing timber framing, so taking like big timbers and like learning for many people like the first time using like chisels to cut notches and fit the blocks like perfectly together to create this sweat lodge. And then we cover it with blankets. We heat up some big rocks. We like roll them in, pour water, and like kind of experience this. For me, I would say it's like a transcendent discomfort. Like there's a cool, grounded rudeness to sitting on the earth, and this like enveloping like steam, but the collectiveness of that discomfort and kind of the breath between rounds, like really, it's powerful.
Yeah, and then you even have like bouldering.
Yeah.
Maybe even an area you can top rope off of. I mean, it's just such a cool space. Sauna, cold plunge, other things. I mean, the house, the design of the house. Who did you say?
The house was designed by Norton Juster, who wrote like The Phantom Toll Booth, which is this like crazy kind of philosophy book for kids. Like, and I just read it recently, and it's like blown away.
Right.
Like I think it went way over my head when I read it when I was a kid.
So yeah, you have an awesome space. Any so you said Instagram and any other ways to stay connected with Movement Creative, or just any other way to stay connected with you?
Yeah, you know, I'm on Instagram as jesse.danger. Like the Movement Creative is on Instagram. We have that festival, official Move NYC
Cool.
festival, and then Vandrahem.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for today. This was awesome. You know, I'm inspired to go to my park and just look and see what I'm going to jump on.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you go out, you see what's possible, you kind of like wrestle with this moment. I can't do it, I can do it, and then you grow.
Thanks for today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.